She walked into the bank like any other customer, confident, professional, and prepared to access her own money. But within minutes, the room shifted. The teller's smile vanished, the whispers began, and suddenly her presence was treated as a threat. She wasn't just denied service, she was humiliated, questioned, and made to feel like she didn't belong. But what no one in that lobby realized was that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because this woman wasn't just another customer, she was the CEO. The question is, what happens when prejudice collides with power? The moment Danielle handed over her withdrawal slip, everything changed. The teller's smile stiffened, her eyes darting to a supervisor across the floor. Whispers passed between them, quick and sharp, as if Danielle had done something wrong simply by standing there. Minutes stretched into something heavier. The line behind her shifted uncomfortably, curious stares pressing against her back. For most of her life, Danielle had built everything through grit and perseverance. She wasn't just successful, she was a trailblazer, the kind of woman who broke ceilings and opened doors others tried to keep shut. Each morning, she rose early, balanced board meetings with community work, and carried herself with a calm strength that made people stop and listen. That afternoon should have been no different. She had left a meeting downtown, her mind full of plans for expanding the company she had poured years into building. The bank stop was supposed to be routine, just another errand in a life defined by progress. But as she stepped inside the lobby, polished floors gleaming under the lights, a quiet tension hung in the air. She didn't see it yet, but it was there, in the sidelong glances, in the unease. Then came the first insult disguised as procedure. The teller asked for identification, again and again, as though the multiple documents Danielle had already provided weren't enough. Her driver's license, her company card, even her signature, all were scrutinized with suspicion. Behind the glass, their voices lowered, their eyes sharpened. What should have been routine was transforming into an interrogation. The supervisor arrived, carrying authority but not respect. His questions cut sharper than necessary. Why do you need this much money? Where did these funds come from? Danielle's explanation was calm, professional. She had nothing to hide. Yet each word seemed to make them dig deeper, as though her very success was a crime that needed exposing. The lobby's atmosphere thickened. Customers glanced up from their phones, sensing something unusual. Some leaned closer, eager to witness the spectacle of a powerful black woman being treated as if she didn't belong. The silence between questions became louder than the questions themselves. And then came the final blow. The supervisor told her the transaction couldn't be processed. No explanation that made sense, just a cold refusal, her own money, denied to her face. The weight of humiliation pressed down, but beneath it, something else stirred, a rising fire. Still, Danielle held steady. She knew that showing anger would only feed their prejudice, confirm their assumptions. Instead, she paused, straightened her shoulders, and locked eyes with the man across the counter. The supervisor's refusal hung in the air like a verdict. Danielle stood frozen, not from fear, but from the crushing weight of what had just unfolded. Around her, whispers grew louder. Some customers smirked, others shook their heads, as though they had already decided she didn't belong in this space. The teller's hand trembled as she scanned the pages. The supervisor leaned in, his smug confidence faltering. Murmurs spread through the lobby, confusion overtaking judgment. And then Danielle said the words that shattered the air like glass. I own this bank. The silence that followed was deafening. Faces that had once watched in mockery now stared in disbelief. The same supervisor who questioned her legitimacy now looked pale, caught between arrogance and shame. For a heartbeat, the entire room seemed suspended, waiting to see what would come next. Because in that moment, Danielle wasn't just reclaiming her money, she was reclaiming her power. And everyone watching knew nothing about this story would end the way they expected. The weight of Danielle's words hung over the room like thunder that refused to fade. Eyes that once looked down on her now widened in shock, some in shame, others in awe. The teller stammered an apology, the supervisor fumbled for excuses, but it was too late. The truth was out. Every act of suspicion, every humiliation, had been exposed for what it was, not a matter of policy, but prejudice. Danielle collected her papers calmly, dignity intact. She didn't need to raise her voice or demand respect. Her very presence now commanded it. As she walked out of the bank, whispers followed her, but they sounded different this time. Not mockery, not doubt, something closer to reckoning. Yet beneath her composure, she knew this wasn't just about her. What happened in that lobby was a reflection of what so many others endure every day. Doors closed, voices silenced, dignity questioned. She had the power to fight back. But what about those who don't? That's the deeper wound racism leaves behind. Not just the moment of humiliation, but the endless repetition of it, the way it tries to chip away at identity and belonging. Danielle's victory that day wasn't simply reclaiming her money. It was proving a truth that should never have been in question. She belonged. And as we think about her story, we have to ask ourselves, how many more moments like this play out unseen, unrecorded, unanswered? How many more people will have to prove their worth just to be treated with basic respect? Because until the day those questions no longer need asking, stories like Danielle's will remain both a warning and a call to action.